Hi guys, welcome to Chess Team Study. Today we are going to talk about one of the checkmate patterns, the Greco's mate. The term Greco's mate was given to this maneuver in the book The Art of Checkmate, first published in England in 1953. Technically, the name could apply to wide-range positions where white opens the h-file by means of a knight sacrifice on the g-file. Greco was an Italian chess writer who published a number of groundbreaking manuals on the game. The Greco's mate is just like this example. If we are playing the white pieces, we can use the light square bishop to put pressure on g8. Then you use the queen on the rook to seal off the h-file and leave the castle king nowhere to go, here resulting in the checkmate. The structure is similar to the Morphy's mate. The Morphy's mate, the g-file was sealed off by a rook or queen. The long diagonal leading to h8 was controlled by a bishop. The Greco's mate, controlling the g-file, the diagonal leading to g8. The idea of trapping the king with the diagonal and vertical pressure in the same. Let's study deeply. What's the challenge in using the Greco's mate? It is to get the needed line open. White has a bishop aimed at g8, which is the first element of the Greco. If add pressure down the h-file, Greco mate is done. How to get a file open? By requiring black h7 to capture. It does not protect anything that white can take, but it does guard a square from which white can give check. The knight sacrifice opens the h-file are a common feature of the Greco's mate. We have two techniques for opening the king's pawn cover. One was to put a threatening piece on a square where one of the pawns was needed to capture. The other, here, mating threats a common way to force the pawn in front of the king to move. Now in this position, he cannot move the king, so you need to play h takes g6, which opens up the h-file. This is an example how Greco's mate does a neat switchback. A knight on g5, a queen on h5, and a bishop on c4 is very common. If black has unwisely left not enough pieces defending his king side, the game can end very quickly. Here we deal with the particular maneuver where my white queen sneaks into the g6 square. If black plays pawn to h6, this also attacks white's knight. But now we can play bishop takes f7. He cannot play rook takes f7 because they head into checkmate. So he played king to h8. Black would not want to cost the rook for a bishop because it will deliver mate as we have just seen. So at this moment, the bishop controls the diagonal leading to g8, one of the key elements of Greco's mate. queen g6. This is a good move. This ignores the attack on his knight. One idea is simple. Open the h file to finish the Greco's mate pattern. Now that the h file has been opened, the white queen returns and checkmate. Greco's mate. Again, a knight helps open the needed file. The little back and forth maneuver of the white queen is a useful tool, worth examining until it's familiar. In the last example, we saw the position of attacking pieces: a knight on g5, a queen on h5, and a bishop on c4 to complete the Greco's mate. This time, let's see as black's view. Let's pause the video and think for a few seconds. Black to move. Alright, hopefully you have got it. As you can see, the bishop on d4 controls the diagonal d4 to g1. Although the g4 knight is under attack, but if black moves queen to the h file, the h pawn will be pinned. He plays rook to f1 to stop knight to f2. And if you play something else, the mate could appear too. Because queen g3, as we have already seen in the last example. White has no way of stopping queen h2 mates. So you need to play h6 g4, then queen h4 is mate. When we prepare starting our attack, putting our attacking pieces onto the right squares is the main job for us to learn. In this example, black's 3 attacking pieces are perfectly placed: the knight on g4, the bishop on d4, and the queen on h4. And white's f pawn was pushed, which creates lots of black square weaknesses. In this example, you can see black has just castled. She seems safe, but after looking into it, we can find one to 3 pieces trained on f7. It must create something, at least some material gain. The natural way to start is by opening a line. So white starts by removing the f-pawn with a check. Black's 2 choices. Take the white bishop and move his king to h8. We do not want to play rook takes f7 because that leads to mates with queen takes f7, king h8, queen e8, bishop f8, queen takes f8 is mate. So after bishop takes f7, he went king to h8. Half the Greco's mate is in place, and white has a knight he can use to force open the h file, like we see before. In the next example, you should pause the video and think for a few seconds. Black to move. Alright, this time white's king is the one that seems secure. But look at the strength of Black's resources. He has 2 discovered attacks arranged against each 2. Think about good ways to clear the knight and bishop from the path of the heavy pieces. Knight to e2 check. e2 and e7 often becomes deadly square for a knight to attack king. King h1. Blacks want to mate white king on h1. Only need queen takes h2. And h2 must be protected. So move Black's own bishop out of the way of his rook, which will solve all of these. He needs to do anyway to complete the pattern of Greco's mates. Interesting here, g3 and g1 squares are controlled by both Black's knight and bishop. Black used the bishop and rook to complete Greco's mating pattern. If the bishop was not here, it will mate as well. The knight on e2 controls g3 and g1. This mate is called the Nastasia's mate. We have already learned this in the previous video. This is the last example in this whole video. So you can see, in this example, Black has just used his knight to capture white's bishop g3. This was a mistake. Can you see why? Pause the video and think about this last example. Alright. By leaving his knight on g3, when he can easily move his own h-pawn off the h-file and leave the rook with a clear path to h7. Black's f-pawn has advanced. So thoughts of Greco's mate come to mind. And white also has a bishop on the diagonal to control g1. Knight e7. Pick the knight move carefully. The h-file needs to be opened on the black end, and your rook on h1 can't do that by itself. It needs another piece to help, and the other piece is the knight. Knight e7 check is a double check that requires black to move his king to h8. Again, g6 is a very good square for a knight to open h-file. This is mate. White wins the game. So that's a summary. When f-pawn is in front of the king, moves. Things about Greco's mate. Control the diagonal linear to g8. Open the h-file. Put a heavy piece on the file. Let's summary. When f-pawn is in front of the king, moves. Think about Greco's mate. Control the diagonal linear to g8. Open the h-file. Put a heavy piece on the h-file. They enjoy the mate. Alright, thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.